Have you ever wondered if the stories written on the oldest stones are not just myths, but memories? Long before the pyramids rose, before the marble temples of Greece, before Rome called itself eternal, there was a civilization that pressed their thoughts into wet clay and baked them in fire so their words would never die. Those words tell of strange beings who did not belong to this world, yet shaped it in ways so deep that their shadows linger even now. The Sumerians called them the Anunnaki. Some translations say it means those who came down from the heavens, but even that definition trembles, because how could a people 6,000 years ago speak with such certainty about beings descending from the sky unless they had seen them? The story begins in the land between rivers, in Mesopotamia, where the soil was rich, the water gave life, and the first cities of humankind were born. Eridu, Uruk, Ur, names that still echo like half-remembered dreams. The people there carved signs that became the world's first writing system, cuneiform, and in that writing they preserved myths, hymns, laws, and lists of kings. Among these texts was the strange declaration, "When kingship descended from heaven, it was in Eridu." Descended from heaven, 3 words that have haunted every researcher, every dreamer, every seeker of the hidden for centuries. In their stories, the Anunnaki were powerful, immortal, and divided among themselves. Some ruled the skies, some walked the earth, others judged the dead in the underworld. They gave mankind knowledge, how to plant, how to harvest, how to build. But they also brought war, floods, and fear. The people worshipped them, built temples to them, and bowed before their statues. But somewhere in those prayers lingered not only reverence, but something else, memory. The Sumerian King List, one of the strangest ancient texts ever found, reads not like mythology but like a record. It names rulers and the length of their reigns. But these reigns stretch not for decades, not even for centuries, but for thousands of years. One king ruled for 2800 years, another for 36,000. To modernize this looks impossible, absurd, and yet there it is, carved into clay. Were the scribes lying, exaggerating? Or were they remembering beings who did not age as humans do? Beings who came from elsewhere, who lived far longer, who seemed eternal. The thought lingers like a shadow on the tablet's surface. The myths tell us of Enki and Enlil, brothers divided in their vision for mankind. Enki, lord of water and wisdom, who loved humanity and sought to help them. Enlil, lord of wind and authority, who saw humans as noisy, troublesome, unworthy of divine presence. It is said Enki fashioned humans from clay, mixing earth with the essence of the gods to create a being capable of work and thought. But Enlil grew weary of mankind's clamor and plotted to silence them. When the flood was decreed, it was Enlil who demanded humanity's end, and Enki who whispered into the ear of Atrahasis, telling him to build a great boat. Does this sound familiar? Centuries later, in a different language, on different soil, the story would be told again of Noah. Could it be coincidence? Or was it the same story remembered through different eyes? Different cultures passed on like a secret flame? The further we go into these tales, the more we see patterns, repeated across time and geography. Gifts from the gods, knowledge that arrives too early, astronomy in a world that should not have known the heavens. The Sumerians mapped the movements of planets invisible to the naked eye. They spoke of a 12th celestial body, a wandering star or planet. Later generations dismissed it as superstition. But in the 20th century, a man named Zecharia Sitchin reread these texts and claimed the Sumerians were describing Nibiru, a hidden planet on a long elliptical orbit, home of the Anunnaki. According to Sitchin, the Anunnaki came to Earth not out of kindness, but necessity. Their planet was dying, its atmosphere failing. They needed gold, a rare metal with properties that could repair and sustain their world. Earth was rich in gold, so they came. But mining is toil, endless toil. To free themselves, the Anunnaki turned to genetic engineering, blending their essence with the hominids who already walked the earth. From this experiment, humanity was born. not as children of grace, but as workers of necessity. We were made to serve, and yet as myths often warn, servants become something more. Humanity grew, multiplied, dreamed. Some of the Anunnaki loved us, others despised us, but always the relationship was tense, shifting between guidance and control, benevolence and tyranny. The stories of gods teaching mankind agriculture, astronomy, kingship, medicine, can be read not as divine miracles, but as lessons given to a species too young to understand where the knowledge came from. Were the pyramids of Egypt, the megaliths of South America, the astronomical alignments of Stonehenge, all born from this hidden legacy? Mainstream scholars laugh at Sitchin's theories. They say his translations are flawed, his conclusions unscientific. They point to mythology as invention, exaggeration, symbolic poetry. But still, the questions remain, stubborn as stone. How did the Sumerians know the length of a year with astonishing precision? How did they understand the tilt of the Earth's axis? Why do their myths echo across oceans, mirrored by civilizations that supposedly never met them? Mesoamerican legends of sky gods, Egyptian tales of divine rulers, Greek myths of titans, all speaking of beings who came before, who ruled, who shaped, and who fell. The evidence is not proof, but it is a whisper that makes you wonder, are myths only imagination, or are they memory clothed in story? Imagine the night sky thousands of years ago, unspoiled by city lights, where the stars burned bright and the Milky Way stretched like a river of fire. Imagine a people looking upward, not with superstition, but with recognition, as if the heavens were familiar. Did they wait for something to return? Did they remember the ones who descended in fire and smoke, who shone like the sun, who towered over men and taught them secrets? The Anunnaki are described with wings, with horned crowns, with strange devices in their hands. Ancient carvings show figures that look eerily like astronauts, with helmets with what resemble watches or tools. Others depict objects shaped like rockets, cones of fire beneath them. To the people of 6,000 years ago, what would such machines look like? Gods, birds, flames from heaven? They carved what they saw in the only language of shapes they knew, but if they were real, where did they go? Some say they withdrew when humanity grew rebellious, leaving temples and memory behind. Others say they still walk among us, hidden in plain sight, their bloodlines flowing in kings and leaders, guiding history from the shadows. And some whisper of return, that Nibiru's orbit is long, and when it swings close again, they will come back, to rule, to judge, or perhaps to see what their creation has become. The Sumerian tablets do not say it clearly. They leave fragments, broken texts, words missing where time chewed the clay. But in those fragments are clues: a flood, a war among the gods, a sky that burned, a kingship that descended and descended again. Cycles, patterns, history repeating like the orbit of a wandering planet. Now consider this. Why do so many cultures, separated by oceans, tell the same story? Of sky gods who descended, of knowledge given, of a great flood, of rulers who were not human. It is as if mankind is a child adopted by many parents, each culture preserving a part of the truth, each fragment waiting to be joined. In Egypt, Osiris, Isis, Horus, gods who came to teach. In Mesoamerica, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent who brought knowledge and corn. In India, the Vimanas, flying chariots of the gods. In Greece, the Titans who ruled before the Olympians. Again and again, the same melody played in different tongues. Could all these be echoes of the same beings, remembered differently by different peoples? And what of the flood? From Mesopotamia to the Bible, to the stories of Native Americans, to the myths of Asia and the Pacific Islands, the flood is universal. A catastrophe that nearly erased mankind, sent by gods, survived by a chosen few. Was it only myth? Or was it memory of an ancient disaster, perhaps a war among the Anunnaki themselves, or the consequence of forces beyond human control? Science digs into the ground and finds ruins older than expected, Sites like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, 12,000 years old, long before agriculture, yet built with vision and precision. Who taught those builders? Who showed them the stars? Did they remember teachers no one else remembers? And so the story weaves on, half history, half legend, half warning. Every discovery raises new questions. Every answer slips away like sand in the wind. Perhaps the strangest part is not what the Sumerians wrote, but how much they seem to know. They spoke of the planets, not as wandering lights, but as a family with orbits, relationships, and order. They named them, described their positions, and included one more, a 12th member, one modern science has yet to confirm. They described time in cycles, the heavens in mathematics, and left us wondering, how could the first civilization also be the most informed? Did they discover all this on their own, or were they taught by the ones who came down from the heavens? If so, what else did they know that we have forgotten? When you walk among the ruins of Ur, the air is heavy with silence, but it is not an empty silence. It is thick, like a memory pressing against the skin. The ziggurat rises in tears, a mountain built by hands who wanted to touch the sky. Was it only for worship, or was it something more? A beacon, a station, a place where heaven and earth met, as the myths claim. To the people, these were temples, holy ground where gods descended. To us, could they have been landing sites where fire and smoke rose and the sky opened? Enlil, the stern god of storms. Enki, the wise lord of water. Inanna, goddess of love and war. Ninhursag, mother of mountains. They are names that linger like echoes. Their roles feel human, yet more than human, like memories distorted by time. Were they divine archetypes? Or were they beings whose presence was too overwhelming for humans to describe any other way? Worship was not simply faith. It was fear, awe, submission to powers that could destroy or uplift with a word. Humanity lived under their gaze, uncertain if they were love children or mere tools. The myths say humanity rebelled. Tired of toil, tired of servitude, humans grew restless, loud, disobedient. Enlil wanted them erased, but Enki pleaded for them, seeing in his creation more than just laborers. He saw potential. Was this a myth of divine conflict, or was it history disguised? The memory of two factions of beings who argued over our fate. Some saw us as useful. Others saw us as dangerous. In that conflict, humanity survived but changed. No longer simple servants, but creatures of curiosity, ambition, and defiance. Look across the ancient world, and the same stories rise again. In Greece, Prometheus stole fire from the gods and gave it to man, and for this he was punished eternally. In the Bible, the serpent offered forbidden knowledge to Adam and Eve, and for this, humanity was cast from paradise. Knowledge is always the forbidden fruit, the dangerous gift, the spark that lifts mankind upward, but separates him from the gods. Could this be memory of the same event? The Anunnaki giving us knowledge too soon, knowledge we were not meant to hold. Fire, agriculture, astronomy, kingship, writing. Was this the original sin? The moment humanity became more than slaves? Archaeologists speak of progress, of slow accumulation, of cultures building step by step. But the gaps remain, sudden leaps forward that should not be possible. The birth of Sumer, seemingly from nothing, fully formed with cities, laws, temples, astronomy, agriculture, and writing. Not a slow rise, but an explosion. How? Why? Could it be that something descended from the sky, bringing not only kingship, but the tools of civilization itself? And then there are the structures, scattered across the globe like a puzzle that does not fit the timeline. Stones cut and moved with precision we still struggle to match. Aligned to the stars in ways so exact it seems impossible without advanced knowledge. The Great Pyramids aligned to Orion's belt, Stonehenge marking solstices, temples in South America tuned to celestial events. Did humans truly discover all this alone, or did they inherit knowledge from their gods, their teachers, their creators? The question burns brighter when you consider that so many myths speak not just of gods, but of their return. Cycles, ages, promises. The Golden Age, when gods walked among men. The Silver Age, when they withdrew. The Iron Age, our time, when man rules but waits for the return of the gods. In Sitchin's vision, that return is not metaphor but astronomical inevitability. Nibiru's orbit will bring it back into range, and with it, perhaps, the ones who left. What would happen if they came again? Would we recognize them as gods? As aliens? As ancestors? Or as something entirely new? Skeptics point to imagination, to human need for story, for explanation. They argue that myths are metaphors, nothing more. But ask yourself, why do myths across continents, separated by oceans and millennia, tell the same story? Why the sky gods, the floods, the knowledge given and forbidden, the wars among divine beings? If imagination alone is the cause, then humanity's imagination is strangely consistent. If myth alone explains it, then myth has memory deeper than history. Consider, too, the bloodlines of kings. Nearly every ancient ruler claimed descent from the gods. Pharaohs were children of Ra. Emperors were sons of heaven. Kings ruled not by strength, but by divine right. Was this only metaphor, or did they remember ancestry different from ours? If the Anunnaki intermingled with humanity, perhaps their blood ran in the veins of rulers, preserved, passed on, shaping history quietly. And if so, does it still flow today, hidden in families of power, unseen but present, guiding from behind thrones and offices? There is also the darker whisper that they never left, that they walk among us still, not in glory but in shadow, disguised, their influence woven into governments, economies, empires. That the kingship never ceased to descend from heaven, only now it does so unseen. The idea chills, not because it cannot be true, but because it explains too much. Wars, sudden leaps in technology, secret knowledge appearing at just the right moment. Are we truly alone in guiding our history, or are unseen hands still moving the pieces? The clay tablets leave us no clear answer. They break, they fade, they hide as much as they reveal. The story is never whole. Perhaps that is deliberate. Perhaps we are meant to search, to question, to wonder. Every new discovery brings us closer, yet keeps the mystery intact. A name here, a fragment there, a line that does not fit. The Anunnaki remain shadows in the dust, refusing to be pinned down. And so the question burns on. Were they gods? Beings of myth and story, born from the imagination of humanity's first civilization? Were they aliens, visitors from a wandering planet who came to mine gold and created mankind as workers? Or were they something else? Something we cannot yet imagine, too vast for us to understand, so we wrap them in names and statues and myths. The answer hides in silence. Stand at night under the stars, away from the cities, and look upward. Feel the immensity, the darkness, the distance. The same stars shone on the Sumerians 6,000 years ago. The same stars shone on the ones they called Anunnaki. Did those stars remind them of home? Did they gaze upward, longing for a sky they had left behind? Or did they gaze downward, seeing in humanity not slaves, not children, but something unexpected, something new, something that might one day equal them? We are left with fragments. Kings who ruled for thousands of years, a flood that nearly ended the world, a knowledge too advanced to be explained, myths of gods who descended from heaven. And through it all, one name, whispered like a riddle, Anunnaki. The story is not finished. Perhaps it never will be. But as long as humans look to the stars, as long as we wonder where we came from and who shaped us, the shadow of the Anunnaki will remain. Were they real? Were they gods? Were they visitors? Or are they waiting, watching, preparing to return? The truth lies somewhere between the clay tablets and the silence of the stars. And until that truth is revealed, the mystery remains open, unsolved, eternal. And yet, beyond the well-known fragments of Mesopotamian myth, there are whispers, hidden cracks in the clay tablets that offer strange and unsettling details about the Anunnaki. Some records call them not only judges of humanity, but scribes of destiny. They were said to hold styluses of fire and carve into the invisible scrolls of time, writing events before they unfolded. If true, the Anunnaki were not merely rulers of flesh and stone, but of fate itself. Other myths root their power not in the heavens, but deep below the earth, in the shadowed realm of Ker. These tales hint that they were guardians not just of the skies, but of the hidden veins of the underworld, keepers of secrets that bridged life and death. Ancient hymns also mention the tablets of destinies, objects so potent that whoever possessed them controlled the order of the cosmos. Were these mystical relics or cryptic metaphors for lost technologies humanity can no longer comprehend? Temple rituals describe priests chanting in long, resonant tones, accompanied by instruments designed to shake the air like thunder. The purpose, the tablets suggest, was not simply worship, but communion, a resonance to call down the beings who listened from beyond the veil. And then there is the paradox of life itself. The Sumerian king list tells of monarchs who ruled for thousands of years. Were they mythic exaggerations or traces of Anunnaki blood, granting unnatural longevity to their descendants? Did the Anunnaki know the science of life extension, secrets now buried in forgotten ruins? These fragments remain, fragile, incomplete, and yet charged with the same question. Were the Anunnaki gods, visitors, or something far stranger? They descended not with thunder, but with silence. Their eyes glowed like the edges of stars, and yet they spoke in words we understood. We were afraid, yet compelled to obey. They did not eat as we ate. They touched the grain, and it withered. They poured liquid from vessels of shining stone, and the fields grew overnight. Some called it magic. Others called it power. I saw one place his hand upon the sick, and the fever left them. But in the same night, another raised his hand, and a strong man's heart stopped as though the breath of the world itself had been stolen. They built ziggurats, not for us, but for themselves. We carried the bricks, we sweat beneath the sun, but when they climbed to the summit, they gazed beyond the sky as if searching for home. Some of them loved us, some of them despised us, but all of them needed us. And so we were trapped between awe and fear, worship and slavery. And so the voices fade, scattered like dust across forgotten deserts. Were these the testimonies of mortals in the presence of gods, or of fragile men trembling before something far less divine? The tablets shouldn't exist, not in this layer of earth. They are older than the city itself, and yet they describe it as though it already stood. Someone or something was here before the builders. I ran my hands over the carvings. The figures are not entirely human. Too tall, their eyes too wide, their proportions unsettling. Yet the artisans etched them with reverence, as if terrified to leave even a line unfinished. One fragment spoke of the tablets of destinies. At first, I thought it was poetry, but the pattern of symbols repeats with precision, as though describing an object, not a myth. Was it real? Could it have survived? I should have sent the discovery to the university, but I didn't. Something in me whispered to keep it hidden. Even as I write these notes, I feel the weight of unseen eyes, watching, waiting, as if the Anunnaki do not belong to the past, but to a future that has already been written. There are whispers, faint and fragmented, about the forgotten tools and powers of the Anunnaki, fragments scattered across myths, half-buried tablets, and the fearful songs of ancient priests. Some spoke of stones that were alive. Not alive like plants or animals, but alive with a strange force. The stories say that when a priest held one to his ear, he could hear a voice speaking from far away, as though another priest in another temple was whispering through the very rock. Could this have been a metaphor? Or was it the memory of some kind of lost technology, now degraded into legend? What makes it even stranger is that across oceans and continents, other civilizations spoke of similar stones, the talking stones of the Maya, the oracular stones of the Celts. How could cultures so far apart, so isolated, share the same strange image? Unless, of course, they were remembering the same visitors. And then there were the gods themselves, the Anunnaki. Witnesses swore their bodies glowed, not with fire, but with a radiance that was unbearable to stare at for long. Some said it was a natural light, like the dawn breaking over the horizon. Others swore it was armor, a kind of second skin made of luminous metal. In the hymns of other lands, the Indian Vedas, for example, the gods are also described as shining beings. Was it coincidence? Or were these civilizations describing the same radiant figures under different names? The texts of Atrahasis contain another disturbing hint. They describe the creation of humanity not simply as the work of clay and water, but as something else, something that required the blood of the gods themselves. The clay was mixed with a divine essence, a spark of life not of this world. To the ancient Sumerians, this was myth. To us, it sounds uncomfortably close to an experiment, a manipulation of life itself. Were the Anunnaki not just rulers, but engineers, experimenting with the fabric of humanity? Even the ruins beneath the desert sands whisper of more. Archaeologists still stumble upon traces of cities older than history itself. Cities that have no names, no records, only shattered bricks buried in silence. Some believe these were the first strongholds of the Anunnaki, abandoned when their time here was done, or perhaps swallowed by some catastrophe the myths no longer remember. Every excavation raises new questions. How advanced were those who lived there? How did they disappear so completely, leaving only dust? And through it all, there runs a thread of silence. The priests of Mesopotamia were forbidden to reveal everything they saw inside the sacred temples. Their silence was not only ritual, it was survival. The texts are clear. Silence preserves life. What had they witnessed that demanded such secrecy? What danger awaited anyone who spoke too freely about the beings they served? Perhaps these were warnings. Perhaps they were only myths. But the echoes are too consistent, too widespread, too persistent across cultures and time. Stones that spoke, bodies that glowed, blood that shaped humanity, lost cities swallowed by sand, and a silence so heavy that it has survived for thousands of years. Were the Anunnaki gods, rulers, creators, or were they something far stranger, beings whose truths still sleep beneath the earth, waiting for us to uncover them? And so, the story of the Anunnaki fades into the same shadows where it began, between myth and history, between the desert sands and the stars above. Were they gods, rulers, visitors from distant worlds, or something else entirely? The clay tablets remain, the ruins remain, and the questions remain. Perhaps the truth has been deliberately hidden. Perhaps we are not ready to understand. Or perhaps the Anunnaki never left. What do you believe? Were they only legends carved into stone, or the first chapter of a history that is still unfolding? If you enjoyed this journey into ancient mysteries, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that challenge everything we think we know.